Thank you for attending. This is 4 out of 4 for our Let's Talk Numbers sessions, and I'm really excited that you're here. Today is going to be a great topic around sort of how do you get to, or how do you quickly get in order your financials. We fully recognize that for a lot of startup founders, you're not going to be investment bankers, management consultants, CPAs, or accountants. So a big piece of this is just understanding through the first 3 sessions, what is sort of Finance 101? How is sort of cash flow different than profit, since cash is such an important piece? And then last week was building out projections. Now that you understand those things, here's how you sort of get them done in a quick way ahead of some important events and the sort of build up of a startup as they grow. So I'm going to share my screen and go through some slides. And then what I also want to do at the end is go through questions and answers, not just on today's topic, but on topics from the beginning to the end. So we've had 3 sessions, and so the Q&A for today is going to go through all of the topics, not just what we're covering today. With that being said, I'm going to hop into the presentation. Oh, and as always, feel free to pop questions in the chat or the Q&A box, sort of ad hoc as I'm going along. I'll try my best to answer those. And feel free to hop in whenever you like. Even some people have sort of answered or asked the question 2 or 3 times to get clarification. I want to be as interactive here as possible. All right. So today our topic is tips, tricks, and hacks to get financials in order quickly. And I'm going to go through objectives today. I think they're important. For all 4 sessions, I've kept the middle objective the same. A huge part of this is just removing the stigma, I think, for founders in general, but absolutely for Black founders around, struggling with finance that'll hinder your business. And I wanted to at least provide some layman terms coaching on how to understand these topics good enough for you to leverage them to help grow and scale your business. And then helping people just realize that a lot of finance is just understanding patterns or knowing what certain things are called. On top of that objective today, we're going to talk through, we understand that great founders don't need to be CPAs. So as venture capitalists, we're not judging fish by how well they run. And so a big piece is just understanding where to go get help. And then part of the startup process is leveraging subject matter experts. So this is another way to do that. And then third objective, there are times you're going to need strong financials, even if you can't create them yourself. And so since this is mission critical, you want to understand this, and the risk that you get into, there's many if you might not understand your financial side of your business well enough. But one of the things that we hear a lot, and I think one of the reasons why Collab was so adamant about starting this specifically for Black founders, is you run into, sorry guys, my mouse is acting a bit overactive. You run into vulnerable or predatory investors if you don't know your numbers. And these are people that they understand your financials better than you. And so they're able to see creative ways to invest in a way that may give them more equity than they should, or put you in precarious situations around future outcomes that you may not understand. Turn off my mouse. All right. So today, the agenda, we're going to go through a week 1 through 3 recap. And then for today's agenda, monthly financials, pros and cons, quarterly financials, pros and cons, some must-have times to get your financials in order, and then a whole slide for solutions and where to get help. And then, like I mentioned, our Q&A on not just today's session, but all 4 sessions. So what did we go through the first week? Finance 101, how founders use finance. We went through the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. We went through both your burn rate and, as a result of how much cash you have, your runway. And then how do these things help you make decisions? So feel free to ask questions at the end regarding those things. So please, if those things are troubling to you, or maybe you didn't get everything you needed, jot down those questions for the end. Cash flow for founders. So week 2, we talked a lot about what is the difference between profit and cash flow? Why do you always hear about profit and not cash flow? Why cash is important, how to calculate it, and then how can you practice? The 3rd week was building out your projections. So we talked about why financial projections are important, some simple financial projection format best practices, financial projections format, and then when to sort of know you're done when you're creating a financial projection. And then again, not for me, where can you get help? So this was a precursor to today's session around where can you get help? So today our topic is sort of tips, tricks, and hacks. And I actually have a shorter agenda for today in hopes that we get more questions around general financial stuff. And so my hope is that, well, I'll have 20 plus minutes to go through questions on any of the topics we covered, or sort of any general financial questions. So we may end this session early. So when we think about pros and cons of monthly financials, so why am I talking about this? When you think about getting your financials, projections, any of this in order, your 2 main options are sort of doing it on a monthly basis, which most people do, or doing it on a quarterly basis. There is a recording. We'll follow up to get it to you. And if you have specific questions about burn rate, I will answer those at the end. So in terms of monthly financials, here are some pros and cons. Pros, it's updated analysis every 30 days. You're making decisions daily as a startup founder. So monthly analysis is probably way better than quarterly. The cons, it can be a bit more costly. And then you're supplying data to your provider every month as well. So to get monthly financials, you're going to need to sort of update those yourself once a month, or update and send the information to your provider and reconcile those things. Quarterly financials, pros and cons. So the benefit of quarterly is oftentimes you can get quarterly financials at a lower cost. And then when you really think about what you know about your business and startup phase, oftentimes knowing even the last quarter will help you and investors understand your business sufficiently. And so I think monthly is better. I think quarterly gets the job done in many situations. So the pros are sort of, it's often a good enough solution. And then the cons of quarterly, it's hard to make monthly or even daily business decisions with quarterly financials. And that's typically because if you think about quarterly, you're going to be 4 months behind. What do I mean by that? So by the time you get your quarterly financial package, you're sort of 4 months away, meaning your Q1 financial package would be sort of January, February, March. So it'll close in terms of time that you're actually analyzing your business March 31st, but you probably won't get the analysis until the end of April. And so between January and April 30th, the most updated piece or financial package you're going to have is from Q4 of the previous year. And so because of that delay, you lose some granularity if you're not updating it more than just quarterly. Thank you, Drew. So when are some times that you should get your financials in order? Now, you could say that you should have these in order at all times, right? And that's probably best. But here are some times when you really should focus on, sorry about this, guys. I'm trying to get the header out of the way, but I think I'm stuck with it. So before major VC rounds, so if you're thinking about raising $500,000 or $1 million, that's a good time to think about, okay, I'm going to be communicating with the financial audience about my business, a financial audience is going to be thinking about it in some sort of financial way. I should get my financials in order. Another time, so before demo days at accelerators and incubators, a lot of programs already have that baked into their curriculum. But if it's not, as a founder, you should know at that point that it's important to get your financials in order at that time. Why is that? Again, because essentially demo day is a time when you're meeting venture capitalists and other investors. And so if you want to have those discussions, you want to know. Before major discussions with any investor. So another investor type is just like friends and family. So this is Thanksgiving, Christmas. You may be talking to friends and family about a business you're growing, and maybe this is a great time to have uncles, aunties, cousins, or even friends that you're going to connect with that you may not have otherwise. When you're thinking about sort of what do you think you can get to revenue-wise next year, sort of what are your costs on a monthly basis, you're going to want to sort of have those numbers in your head when you're having discussions with any investors. And then at Collab, we invest in seed round, and then we can follow on. But there are other seed investors that may or may not call themselves VCs. And so you should probably think about getting your financials in order before major meetings in that capacity. Another time, you may be planning your fundraising rounds. So you may say, I'm fundraising, August of next year. So again, getting this in order before that, you can sort of plan for when you're going to need to do it. And then when you're considering major strategic shifts, so when you're doing a startup, you're always considering sort of where should I go? Should I go after big brand name customers, medium level, small? Should I go direct to consumer or through a distributor or B2B? Should I build the product completely now and then hope it works? Or build it iteratively where I know things are going to be a bit behind, but I get some initial feedback? Do I want to hire the developer in-house, or do I want to outsource that? So when you're considering major strategic shifts, it's another time when you may want to center your brain on how do I get the best package of data to make those decisions? And your financials in order will be a great way to have some concept of what you're going to need to consider, and the trade-offs are different decisions. Meaning you may say, look, I want to model out my cash flow under scenario A, and then I want to model out my cash flow under scenario B. And then after I understand what the implications are, now I can make better decisions of A versus B. I think oftentimes as founders, we're using our gut, and our gut works really well, but it's good to have as much data as you can if you have the time to prepare. See, I have some questions here. Jewel, great addition. Before you're applying for grants, loans, and other alternative sources of funding, that's a very good time to do it. Absolutely. I think as I'm thinking through this now, I would also add the best financial packages have operational data in them. And so what I'm going to go into next is sort of how to get your financial house in order. Many of these resources some of these resources will be able to pull in your operational information. Some aren't so good at that. By operational information, what I'm saying is your financials will give you revenue, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, profit, and cash flow. But alongside your financials, you may want to have things like units sold, number of customers, your average rate per service, or average utilization, or engagement. So all these other things that are important. And so although this discussion is focused on financials because I think that gap is wider, when you're doing this stuff, you should also consider, how do I make sure my operational information is layered in? The easiest way to think about that is just start small. What are the 3 to 5 operational pieces of information that are most important to your business, and just try to layer those in to your financials. And that's the simplest way to get the most comprehensive review, because people might say, what is your revenue anticipated to be next year? They may say, how many customers can you get to in Q1? And so you want to be able to speak to people in the way that they're asking the question, and having both of those pieces together is helpful. And I'll line out on the next page which resources are good for financials primarily, and you need to come in with the operational stuff, and which ones can help you with both generally. So here are some places to get help. Joe, you're gonna make me want to cry. So if you didn't hear squat else that I said in anything that I did on these topics, I want you to read what Jewel just underscored here. The only reason I'm sitting here talking about financials, operations, metrics, accountants, project, any of that, as an entrepreneur, the only reason why those things are important to you, like, you know, air is important, cash flow is important, Elliott, why are financials important? To make business decisions. That's it. And that's why, you know, having 1 year projections is way better than having nothing. That's why having some understanding of what's going on is better than nothing. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you are. And I'll keep going on that as a long-term investor, both in startup businesses and later stage businesses. What people may not tell you is that when they're having some of the initial questions with founders, with owners, the first layer of questions oftentimes is just to understand, do you know your numbers? And oftentimes the questions come in sort of 2s and 3s. So people will ask the same information 2 to 3 different ways to make sure that it all makes sense to them. So they may do customers, revenue, and then ask you revenue per customer. And that's a simple example. But all of a sudden, if you're discombobulated by those questions, then you're tossing out numbers that don't make sense. And as an investor, I can tell you the thing that I'm considering, and again, I don't expect founders to be financial experts, but I am expecting a good grasp of the things that are important for your business. What I'm thinking is this person may not understand their business or their financials or their numbers all that well. And so what does that mean for me? If I'm a helpful investor, that just means I need to augment this group with some resources to help get their financial stuff in order. But I'll tell you, and Jewel will tell you, Barry will tell you, Justin will tell you, for Black founders in cities that aren't in Silicon Valley, you also have predatory investors who will assess your knowledge of your business and essentially take advantage. The other thing is making decisions, and why I was so excited about what Jewel just said. When you're a founder, you're making decisions almost every day. I mean, you really are. Some of them you don't need a clear picture of your business to make, but some, when you're thinking about things that are going to be mission critical, like if you're doing something where you're putting all your chips on the table, all of your cash is going to be eaten up by this plan, you really want to understand where you are. So Joel said it better than I did, but I wanted to spend some time on that. All of these things are to help you make decisions. And when people are assessing how well these things are set up, they're understanding how well you could even possibly make decisions. Because oftentimes, without the knowledge, somebody who has the information to make better decisions may be flying blind. And that's something that an investor is going to sort of pick up on pretty quickly. I don't want to mess up your name, so I won't say it, but this comment here, it's spot on. You always get in trouble when you haven't done financial projections. You make a lot of strategic decisions and now they're not in sync. And that's one of the things that I think the projections help the most with is for me to last how long I think it's going to take to raise money, I need to lower my burn rate today. And that lowering your burn rate typically is tough, tightening the belt, eating less, spending less money. But if you don't foresee the challenges that are coming and you don't lower your burn rate currently and you run out of cash prematurely, as a startup founder that might not be well capitalized, you're out of business. And so I want to underscore that comment as well. Yep, you can be affecting change you didn't intend to. You can also be speaking about a plan that makes no financial sense. So I want to in-house develop a huge software platform just to get to the next milestone. And once I do that, I'll be able to get a bunch of customers. And to bring on the talent to build this huge platform is going to take more money than you have. And so you can be talking about things that aren't fiscally reasonable. Ty, I do recommend using Carta if you can. We use them at Collab, and so I can recommend their software. It works well for us. So the answer to that would be yes. And then Ty, which resources not involving a contract CFO or billable hours do you suggest for advice on valuation and safe negotiations and seed funding rounds? So Ty, let me come back to this and keep me honest if I don't, because I think a great time to talk about that will be after I get through this list. So let me hope I can remind myself. Okay, so where can you get some help? Bench. It's a Canadian-based accounting platform that pulls in information from your bank statements to create your financials, which means you don't have nearly as much burden to provide people all your receipts, all your stuff out of QuickBooks. You don't have to necessarily run a second set of books. Bench for a lot of companies can be a sort of one-stop shop solution for your financials. And let's say you don't know anything about creating financials. You can actually start off 30 days with Bench, I believe, for free. And they will do sort of either your last month's financials or this month's financials, so you can see what they look like before you have to start making a choice about paying. So that's a great solution. We use Bench at Collab just to sort of talk about. I'm recommending it, and I'm a user. Pilot.com is another one. So this is assisted bookkeeping. So you can hire sort of a local CPA to do your stuff, or there are solutions like Pilot and Bookkeeper 360 that are platforms that have accountants and bookkeepers that are available on an ad hoc basis and will allow you to leverage their services. So most people think about them for taxes and monthly bookkeeping, but if you're in a situation where you don't have your financials in order and one of those times we spoke about is coming up, you can leverage these resources to get your financials in order. Now you have a financial package, and now it's much easier to think about your projections because things are all sort of organized and in order. Now, these services are going to be really good. Number one, number two, number three are general sort of service level agreement bookkeeping services. And so they're going to be great at putting your financials together. When I mentioned adding your operational information or adding like number of customers, churn, all those kind of things, these guys are not going to be the greatest at doing that. However, they're a great solution to get your financials in order to start. Number 4, 5, and then 6 is kind of a catch-all. You can look for fractional CFOs on Upwork. I've done it. I've had friends do it. You can look at their ratings on how good they are, what they specialize in. And that fractional CFO can come in, take your information in whatever form it is, and provide you a scope of work to get financials set up, get projections set up. And if you say, hey, I actually want these 5 key performance indicators layered into the financials, they can do all of that. So the benefit of a fractional CFO relative to 1 through 3 is just the flexibility in what they can deliver. This is a smart financial person who's done a lot of startup financials previously, who's coming to you on a fractional basis. Again, I spoke last week that your accountant or your CPA can oftentimes help you with the financial projection themselves. They can also provide referrals. And so you probably have somebody do your taxes or some other thing. And so ask those people for referrals. And then you can ask other successful startups how they handled this challenge. And why do I say successful startups if you can? It's only because I think the best way to get data on anything is to ask people who have been successful. You can surely go into a network of people who are still looking to raise capital and ask how they put their information together. That's me. But if you want a more detailed breakdown of sort of, I chose a fractional CFO because Benchpilot and other bookkeeping services didn't quite give me all that I needed. I wanted to outsource at a high level on a monthly basis. And so for that reason, a fractional CFO was the best choice. And here's my person. If you want to get sort of information at that level of detail, that's why you sort of ask other people who've been successful, because somebody who hasn't been may give you something that gets you part of the way, but not all of the way. And that's really just in life, not just for this. So I said, Ty, that I would tell you how to think about valuation and dealing with that in times when you're having discussions with investors about a SAFE. Valuation and SAFE negotiation. So when you get into SAFE negotiations, one person that can help you is your lawyer or a lawyer. And you want to find a lawyer that specializes in startups because they're going to be the best able per dollar you give them to be able to help you. Those lawyers will oftentimes also know and have some sense. They won't do a valuation for you, but they'll have some sense of what the valuation multiples or metrics are. So a lawyer can help you quite a bit. SAFE negotiations, depending on how complex the agreement is, really good to get a lawyer. The other way, how do you suggest for advice on valuation? So I talked about projections. Don't get too nervous about them because they're all predicting the future, and nobody's good at predicting the future. And I've always said that to try to bring people's blood pressure down around projections. Valuation is way more art than science. And so when an investor provides a valuation for you, that's an indication of what they think your business is valued at. If you think the valuation is off, then you need to provide sort of an opinion or a data set that will support a different valuation. A great resource for that would be the fractional CFO. So if you're looking for a solution around that, a fractional CFO, particularly someone who is in the startup space, would know that. The other thing you want to do there is just look at data points on other similar companies that have gotten investments and kind of understand what their value is and try to find companies as close to your business as possible. And Ty, thank you for these great questions. Okay. Well, you said not involving a contract CFO. Hey, if you want to do it for free, it's tougher, Ty. My general recommendation around things that are large in dollar amounts or large in the investment of time that's going to come as a result of those things, or are highly complex, or there are parties on the other side of the table that are very sophisticated, knowledgeable, and well capitalized. When you're in those situations, I encourage you to not go cheap. Could I walk you through a bunch of ways to do it for free? Sure. It would probably take you 10 times as long as it would take me to do it. And your time is so valuable, you'd be better suited finding someone like me on Upwork, paying them $200 to get you going, and feeling comfortable that you actually know the answer, than you spending 10 hours of your time amongst all the things that you're doing to get an answer that's probably 25% as good. And now you're talking about a $500,000 SAFE negotiation that you missed something significant on, and you're going to live under that SAFE agreement for 2, 3, 4 years. So I would encourage, if it's not something you know already, get some help. I'm going through the chat here. And just so you guys know, the formal agenda, we're done with it. And so we're really into Q&A anyway. So this is perfect. So I want you guys to feel comfortable not only asking about today's topic, but any of the topics we covered or any sort of financial related, projection related, valuation related questions. We have 26 minutes. So as long as the questions keep coming up until 6 o'clock, I will stay here to answer them. So John Brooks, how do you feel about Intuit by QuickBooks? I think it's the most utilized, the most useful general accounting sort of solution for people. And they've made it sort of very intuitive and very collaborative. I like it a lot. There are other solutions that are coming onto the market that I think are great for founders. And I think once you get set up in QuickBooks, you can understand better your financial needs and find a solution that works really good for your needs. There's a lot of SaaS softwares that are doing this pretty well too. But I think, the McDonald's of financial software is QuickBooks. And so if you don't know where to go and don't have a compelling reason to go somewhere else, I'd encourage you to go there. So payroll.io is another site that you can go to get sort of CFO outsource help. And so Rachel, thanks for noting that. And there's a lot of others out there too. If you go to Google and search fractional CFO, you'll get a lot of solutions. What you want to do is make sure or try your best to find someone who is used to the startup environment. They'll just be more efficient and they'll help you more. You're going to be paying either way. Oh yeah, Jewel took the words out of my mouth. Valuations are much more a function of what the investors are willing to pay than anything you can provide from a data perspective. Yep. Totally agree with that. And I guess the so what there is you shouldn't think that you're going to have the ability to push an investor too far at an early stage around a valuation. Typically, when I've seen valuations change significantly in early stage companies, it's because investor A thinks it's this valuation and investor B thinks it's some other one, and you get term sheets from both. If you don't, it's very hard to negotiate at early stage. So I totally agree with Jewel there. That's also the reason I wouldn't spend a lot of your time trying to figure out valuations. I also wouldn't necessarily spend a lot of money to get someone else to help validate. It's one of those times, and I've been as a starter of a healthcare IT startup that I was looking at term sheets and waiting. It's a stinky waiting game, and you may want to have the comfort of a model with a bunch of numbers to help predict your valuation. But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, you're sort of trying to present your business in the best way to as many people as possible. So if somebody comes and gives you a valuation, and it's one of the times in life where you really have to wait. Rachel is asking, if someone has no revenue or under $5,000 in annual recurring revenue, should they even have a CFO? That's hard to answer. And I think the answer to that is probably a bit dependent on the industry. So $500,000 in annual revenue is, $50K, it's under $50K a month. Probably not an internal CFO at that point. If you're in a financial business, if your financials are complicated for some reason, there's some reasons why you may want to have a CFO, but I don't think a lot of businesses at $500,000 of ARR have an internal one. That's also why I said you should look for a fractional CFO. So a real CFO, you may have to pay $75,000, $100,000. A fractional CFO, you may pay, $100 or $150 per hour. And so leveraging the resources that are most appropriate for your business is an important part of this. I'll expand this. So Jewel also came and said what investors are willing to pay and what you are willing to give up as a founder. Yeah, and I may be missing a little bit of the context, but one of the things here is that if you don't like the valuation on an early stage term sheet, the thing that you have to consider is if you're willing to give up that much as a founder. Now, if it's a convertible note, those are different, but if somebody comes and says they want to buy 10% of your business for this amount, oftentimes your negotiation around valuation is just to not accept that offer for your business because you may not be willing to give it up. Rachel asked a great question here. Any books, blogs, or other resources you recommend on gaining better understanding of financials? Having a system is great as it makes things more efficient, but it doesn't tell you what the purpose or needs are of your financials and exercises you took us through. Great question. So, sorry guys, hold on, I'll put this on mute. Okay, great, stop. So this is one of those things where like the flavor of the info is going to be a heavy determinant on which place you should go. So for me, and I actually looked at it today, when I was running my own healthcare IT startup, where I went was Guy Kawasaki has an amazing blog on kind of all things startup. And now Jewel may hop on here, or Barry or Justin, and say, oh, that guy's crazy, and you should go talk to someone else. But I can tell you from a general perspective, I thought that most of the topics that I was interested in had something short, simple from Guy Kawasaki, and it felt solid to me. And so that's one of the main places I went. It can be tougher to understand. So like the blogs that are out there around financials, part of the reason I'm hesitant is not because I don't know of blogs that are out there. Here's the rub. As a person that's been in finance and accounting for over 10 years, some of the places are gonna give information that is a bit off, skewed. And so the two places I will send you is look at Guy Kawasaki's blog. And if you're confused about anything financial, the place that I always go is investopedia.com. I think they have the best. If you're Googling something, go to, Google the thing plus Investopedia. They have, short, like 1 or 2 sentence explanations. They have an example in business, and then they have a formula, and it's all typically within 1 page. And so I'll tell you, I've gone there at least 50 times. So, and then other people who are here, I think there's 15 plus folks. If there are other places that you go to get data that help, please toss it in. I'll also say there's some good books, VC Deals, some of the Harvard Business School stuff on early stage startups give you a really good basis as well. So those are places I would go to get more data. Tamisha, what is a good rule of thumb on how much equity of the company you should be ready to offer investors looking to raise $75,000? I would imagine at that low amount of capital, you're probably you should be raising, in my opinion, on a convertible note. I won't get into a long diatribe on valuations. What I'll tell you is that typically entities that are capable of managing the complexity of valuing early stage companies are venture capitalists and kind of seed stage and on, Series A and on, really. And so those dollar amounts are at least $250,000 and up, maybe even $500,000 and up. And so for someone bringing $75,000 to the table, it sort of implies your business is at an early stage. And if it's at an early stage, what I would encourage you to think about is that you don't really know the valuation. And so the convertible note, we use a space agreement, some people use a safe, is essentially someone saying, I don't know what the valuation is. I'm willing to invest this much money. And when a later stage smarter investor comes around and values the business, I want some benefit for being an investor that came earlier. And so I would give up zero equity for $75,000. I would prefer that money on a convertible note. Now, again, valuation in early stage things is very much dependent on the investor. And so in that case, if you can only get equity, I think the best thing to do is to give us a shout offline. That's a tough question to answer sort of generally. So here's my email. If it's a specific question, give me a shout and let's talk about it there. Ty, we've gotten investors to agree to safe and discount only. Okay. 2 of them just on credibility of the team, but potential investors are asking for value cap, and discount. What's the tipping point on issuing too many safes? We don't scale. We're building a predictive shopping platform. Let me think through that for a second. When in doubt, I just use what somebody else smart has used. So if they're coming to the table and saying we're willing to do a safe and a discount, but they want value cap, discount, I would just go to the Techstars safe, look at someone's safe agreement, see what the latest, most recent discount is, see what the value caps are. Ask people who are in the community. It's not really something, most times a investor is going to bring those things to you. If they don't, just reach out to people who are doing this every day to kind of give you a sense on market. I don't want to give that data on a call like this because this may sit on the internet for a long period of time and it changes, but just look at other successful investors. A lot of that information is available online. I know you can download a lot of people's safe agreements, and in that case, you're going to get what they recommend for sort of discounts and whatnot. When we post about these sessions on our social media, Ty, the recordings will be posted there. If you aren't able to get them, use my email and I'll send them to you directly. Okay, understood the typo. Yep. That's the other thing, Rachel, you popped Venture Deals. It's a great resource. Also, this Medium article. Medium is a great place that has a lot of information about a lot of things venture. So most things you want to find out, you can go there. Another place is just most cities have some sort of incubator, startup place, et cetera, et cetera. In Atlanta Tech Village, even the Gathering Spot has become a huge place for Black founders. So going to these places, speaking to other people in the investment community, heck, even going to LinkedIn and just finding a venture investor and asking the question politely in the, connect with, send a note, if you're direct, please don't use, I know you're busy, but just say it. What's a good discount on a safe note? I'm confused. You can get information from people. The startup community is amazing in how willing we are to share data. I grew up in the private equity industry, and in that industry, people do not share information nearly as transparently as they do here. John, I do not do CFO freelance work anymore. So I won't be a solution. Oh gosh, sorry guys. Hopefully that goes away. I'm gonna put my phone on, or this on mute for a second. Hold on. So John, I don't do fractional CFO work anymore. If you need a fractional CFO recommendation, send me an email and I will send one to you. I have a couple of people that still do that work. Yeah, no, Ty, you got it. Those are great places to get the answers to your question. Venture Deals is a book, but I'm sure there's many forums and places that refer to it, but it's an actual book, so you can buy the book. I think probably everybody at Collab has Venture Deals on their bookshelf. Jay, what do you look for in financial due diligence? I'm going to come back to this great question. Let me collect my thoughts on that for a second. Okay, great. So Jay, you wanted to know what do I look for in diligence, and then what makes me scratch my head? I'll try to answer those. Rachel confirmed we all have Venture Deals on our bookshelf. So what do we look for in diligence and what makes us scratch our heads? So I won't be able to answer that, in total here, but I'll try to spend a couple of minutes. When you're thinking about early stage investments and investing in a startup, what is due diligence? Due diligence is just checking the information that may support or not support the vision we see in a business that makes us want to invest in it. So if I'm investing in an early stage e-commerce business or artificial intelligence business or software business, the reason I'm investing is I think this business can revolutionize this particular market that has a total addressable market of this size. I think if it does that, it will have around these margins. And if it does all those things, then I think I can get an amazing return on my money for making this investment. And so that's the first pass that an investor would do in a evaluation of a business. So now we may issue a term sheet. Great. So then what does due diligence look like? Due diligence looks like a analysis of the data that you have that will support that vision or not support it. And keep in mind, as you're growing the business, the data is only sort of directionally helping people understand the future. So there's a huge sort of volatility that's allowed when you think about what data can support the story. So a lot of data that may seemingly support a story will be accepted as we evaluate companies from a due diligence perspective. Also, in early stage businesses, a lot of the diligence is legal because you may have previous investors that came in on a friends and family round, a safe note. You may have granted certain rights to people. You may be set up as an LLC or a C Corp. And so part of diligence is legal. I won't spend a lot of time there. On the financial side, it's really just data that would back up the thesis that the investor has around investing in the company. So part of that is financial, part of that is operational. The other thing that we're doing from a diligence perspective is asking, can this team deliver on this business in a reasonable set of, outcomes and situations? So that's a big piece of it. And then each investor has different specific due diligence items that they look at. At Collab, we're really big on unit economics because we are looking for businesses that can profit in the first couple of years. And unit economics is just how much profit can you make on each customer that you sell. So we're going to look at, if you're selling a product that's $10, after you account for all your costs, after you spread your overhead onto that product over 100,000 products. You might not be at 100,000, but when you get there, sort of what is the profitability at that time And that will help us make a decision around if they get to where we think they can get to, will the juice be worth the squeeze? What makes me scratch my head? Businesses that are doing $100,000 right now that they think by June of next year they're going to be at 100 million or 10 million or some sort of unreasonable number. So all founders are optimistic, but when your optimism far supersedes reasonableness, that kind of has me scratching my head. If you're selling a product that I know sells for $20 and you're saying you can achieve $50, $70, that kind of makes me scratch my head. Sometimes this makes me scratch my head, but I will say it's in a way that doesn't really make me ding anyone, but it's something to consider. When you think about total addressable market, everyone wants their total addressable market to be huge. But I think just like people's financials, when it's unreasonable how you kind of categorize your total addressable market and it's way bigger than what we think your total addressable market is, those are things that make me scratch my head. But that being said, the things that are going to sort of get you removed from a process or make us say no, or an investor say no, are way more nuanced than anything I'm able to say here. So I'm able to kind of give you some high level things, but you should know that if an investor sees a vision and think you can achieve it, they like you, and the data sort of supports their thesis, that's what's going to get you an investment dollar. And if those things, if data doesn't support what you're doing, then that's going to make it tougher. I'm looking through questions here. Okay, Jay, thank you for that. I'm going to go to Q&A and see if we have anything remaining here. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'll give a minute or two for anyone else to ask any questions. Like I said, I'm going to be here until 6, so 4 more minutes if you have anything else you want to ask about sort of any topic financially and sort of in nature. And what I'll say here is that I have certainly enjoyed spending time with you guys here. The fact that, people are here, after the typical work day on the East Coast or sort of in their afternoon, spending time with me talking about financial things is pretty awesome. I want to remind you guys the 4 topics that we talked about: Finance 101, cash flow and recognizing revenue, financial projections, and then tips, tricks, and hacks to get financials in order. So if there are questions you have in those topics, we post the videos on our YouTube channel. So you can get the old videos on our YouTube channel or reach out to us directly. I will hop in here to see if there's any other questions. Great reminder that it's later in the UK. So thank you for spending your late night here. Thank you for the kind words. Awesome. Well, given all of that, I will sign off. Thank you so much for spending your time here. I hope that this has been valuable. If nothing else, please let your friends and other startup founders and other people in the community know. I think, again, the one objective I've kept each of the 4 weeks, there's a huge stigma in the Black community around not understanding financials, projections, and whatnot. And like Jules said, those are the things that are used to help you make decisions in your business. So when you don't understand some of the financial stuff and the projection, you're not making the best decisions in your business, which means you're not going to be set up in the best way to grow and scale and raise capital. And so that's why we're here. And in the Black community, please share this with other people so they can come to our YouTube channel and see the videos and the topics. And if there's huge demand for things like this, I'm sure we will put together other topic-based presentations in the future. So thank you, everyone. And I'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.